children's services are largely delivered. On my last slide to conclude, also I should mention that UNICEF is more confident with its niche and role in PFM and PF4C thanks to its past experience. We had significant number of country offices engaged in PF4C and also identified comparative advantages. And the scope of PF4C issues being addressed that evolved during medium-term strategic plan. And also empowered and strengthened human resources that we have currently in the UNICEF. That's the end of my part, briefly. I'm going to be here to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nima. Thank you, Fania. And I think that presentation highlighted a couple of very critical points. First, in terms of, I think, showcasing how the engagement in public finance for children from UNICEF has scaled up, both in terms of, its coverage and in terms of its depth, quite significantly since we started, as Nima said, with 30 country offices doing work on PF4C in 2007 till today. And in terms, there's also an increasing level of sophistication in terms of the way we engage and the messages that we engage with, moving beyond the simply, increased allocation sort of advocacy to looking very much at the quality of expenditures and monitoring that as well. I think there's also that very important point raised about how, that Fania was saying about how PF4C is a strategy and it's a pathway of change that we need to be focused on, very much focused on a child-focused result. As UNICEF, that's our niche, as there are many significant other players also working on the PFM, on PFM, and having a strategic and a concrete focus on results while investing in a pathway of change is very critical, and not trying to see PF4C related activities or outputs as standalone initiatives. And I think the final point in terms of how there are certain risks associated with engagement in this area, because even as our experience in this area has grown, it is relatively a newer area of engagement for UNICEF. We have a very niche and a concrete child-focused role to play, so there are certain risks depending on our level of ambition and capacity that come into play, and it is good for us to be mindful of that. And of course, from the regional office, from headquarters, we're very glad to accompany you in the process of thinking through some of these issues. So thank you very much. If there are any burning questions on the first presentation, one or two really burning questions, I think we can take them now. Otherwise, I would suggest we move on to the second presentation. And we will have, I forgot to mention earlier, a 20-25 minute slot for discussion at the very end. But if there's any burning question, colleagues, please let us know. I see Amel is typing something. You can also just speak on the microphone if you wish, Amel, if it's something really urgent on this presentation. Okay, so I don't think there's anything burning at the moment. So we'll move. I suggest what do you think is our competitive capacity? Okay. So Amel has a question in terms of, from a global perspective, what do you think is our competitive advantage and capacity? Okay, I would suggest we park this question. It's good to also look at the needs assessment and then the presentation from Palestine as a concrete country example of our engagement in this area. But Sophie, I see, is already typing an initial response to that. In the meantime, let's move on to the second presentation, and over to Fania again.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Basically, again, I will try to quickly just present the major findings of the capacity needs assessment on PF4C that UNICEF MENARO conducted in the end of July, beginning of August this year. Basically, this needs assessment, rapid assessment, was aimed at MENA colleagues working on PFM or PF4C related issues, and it was aimed at capturing the level of their familiarity on public finance and child budgets, and at the same time identifying technical and functional capacity needs and the areas of required support. Basically, as you know, we conducted 2 online surveys. One was for public finance for children focal points, and the other one was for deputy reps. And we received 18 responses from the so-called PF4C focal points and 10 deputy representatives. Here on the graph you can see who basically responded to the online survey for PF4C focal points. At the same time, this exercise, these online surveys were supported by key informant interviews, 6 key informant interviews that we conducted with social policy focal points and deputy representatives. I would like to mention that all the findings that we're going to present here are basically the self-reporting of our colleagues. So they capture perceptions, their perceptions. Okay. Just once again, what we were trying to look at, we wanted to understand the roles and work experience of PF4C. At the same time, the past learning and knowledge of PFM or PF4C issues, and the preferred training methods. So basically, the first finding is that we found that more than half, or 55% of respondents have never been trained on PFM or PF4C issues. While 45% of our colleagues enjoyed some training, either that was a mastery course or specific courses, let's say on social protection or health financing, and etc. Most of the staff trained on PFM or PF4C issues find this knowledge relevant. Here you can see 44%. But 2/3 of those respondents, they apply this knowledge to a limited degree only, which is a bit worrisome for us. The majority of respondents who are comfortable, or let's say the majority of respondents are comfortable of having some basic knowledge of public finance for children issues. And specifically, they're comfortable with conceptual framework of PFM or PF4C. They're okay with reading and analyzing budgets and engagement in budgetary frameworks and processes. At the same time, the issues of PFM in emergencies and humanitarian context is considered to be a new issue, and you can see 67% highlighted that's saying that they don't have enough knowledge in this area. At the same time, our colleagues lack knowledge on such specialized tools as PETs and PRs, and the issues of fiscal decentralization is also kind of new for our colleagues. So in general, respondents rank their ability to engage in PF4C-related reforms as average, and here you can see this is almost 40% of our colleagues. 22% rank their ability to engage in PF4C as below average, while 28% above average. So we were working, let's say, with this self-ranking. Limited internal capacity is one of the most critical challenges for promoting PF4C. This is what our colleagues think. At the same time, they also said that political weak or no political buy-in or fiscal management, political instability and security are also the issues that that are challenging in promotion of PF4C in their country context. At the same time, our colleagues have suggested on a set of other bottlenecks and barriers in promotion of public finance for children issues in their home countries. And basically, we can just aggregately say that they are non-transparent budget and budgetary processes, lack of participatory decision making, lack of limited funding to support PF4C initiatives, ineffective collaboration with IFIs and with the World Bank in particular, as Amel has also highlighted, lack of UNICEF credibility to engage in PF4C, and some other issues that you can actually read, or you can get these details from the paper that we're going to share a bit later, after the workshop. Our colleagues prioritize, first of all, the enhancement of their knowledge and skills on PF4C related programming. That was the first priority. The second priority in terms of knowledge is policy dialogue and advocacy, and At the same time, our colleagues think that they also need enhancement to their skills and knowledge in reading and analyzing budgeted policies. In terms of relevancy, our colleagues think that policy dialogue, advocacy, and partnership is the most relevant area, while revenue management is less or no relevant. And you can see 18% of our colleagues think so. Basically, child-focused budget analysis and financing social protection are relevant, while PF4C in emergencies is not relevant. It's only 3 out of 17 people, but still. And somewhat relevant are financing health, WASH, education, and child protection. We have some good opportunities for PF4C in our countries. Basically, those are the national demand, political will and support of national governments, and at the same time, prioritization of PFM reforms. I would say on a positive note, we can also mention that our colleagues think that there is adequate institutional capacities at the government level, so we can also use that opportunity. In terms of training methods, of course, our colleagues think that the best training method would be the combination of online and face-to-face training, and this is also something that we're taking into consideration. So there were a set of recommendations. A longer list is again available in the narrative paper. Here we're going to just highlight the key recommendations that we decided to share now. So basically, one of the first recommendations is to elevate focus on PF4C on a corporate level and to prioritize organizational investment in PF4C. It is also advised to launch a regional PF4C learning program targeted at UNICEF professionals, including sectoral program staff, and if possible, government counterparts. We also need to strengthen the PF4C component of sectoral and other UNICEF learning programs. It is also advised to adapt tools and develop strategic guidelines for UNICEF's engagement in PF4C. And this is basically what our colleagues in New York are currently doing. And it is also advised that country offices need to identify niche and assess risks associated with their engagement in PF4C. Basically, this is what we mentioned in our earlier presentation. And now the floor is given to Saman.
Thank you, Fania. So as you see, colleagues, the key issue that we saw coming out of the capacity and needs assessment that was conducted was very much related to capacity strengthening and the need for this in the region. Even in terms of colleagues who are already working in this area, it was felt and it was discovered that many colleagues had not been trained adequately or did not feel that they were adequately trained to confidently engage in public finance for children in terms of budgeting processes, in terms of undertaking assessments, and so forth. So this was a major thing coming out. There was also the recommendation to train government counterparts, which I think we will have to take on at a later stage. But based on this very strong recommendation, we've already been working on the outlines of a regional public finance for children training program aimed at being delivered sometime at the end of Q1, early Q2 next year. Here I think it's also important to emphasize that, as Fania was mentioning earlier, one of the key risks is not having buy-in from management at the country office level, which is why when we did the needs assessment, we involved a significant number of deputy representatives as well. So it was good to see that concern in terms of strengthening capacity and technical knowledge being echoed at that level as well. We are working on the outlines of this program. We've issued an initial call for proposals for institutions to deliver this program, but of course we'll be working in more detail to define the contours of the program itself and to define the participants. At this point, we're thinking, of course, of the social policy focal point social policy officers, as well as sectoral colleagues working in education, health, child protection, and so forth, who are already engaged in public finance related work or are anticipating to engage in this area, but keeping a narrow, a focus for the orientation program quite well defined at the moment. So I think that's an important point we've taken into consideration. We're already working on that, and I think it's very important in the context, as Fania was saying, where there is increased national demand and willingness for UNICEF to engage in this area. So with that, I think if there are any burning questions of clarification rather, on the survey itself, on the findings, if there's anything urgent, we can take the question now. Otherwise, we've parked Amel's question for the final discussion, and we can take other more substantive questions at that stage. Okay, so it seems that there are no clarification-related questions now. So now I have the pleasure of handing the floor to Kumiko, who is going to present on the investment case that was done on public education in Gaza. And this is one of the pieces of public finance for children-related work that has been undertaken in a very difficult context, making a very important case. And I think it serves as a inspiration for us across in the whole region in terms of what difference UNICEF's engagement in this area can make, and which also serves to answer Amel's question to a certain extent. So over to you, Kumiko.
Thank you very much, Saman. I'm trying to open my PowerPoint. Let's see. Do you see my PowerPoint?
No. Kumiko, try once again, please.
Okay.
Yes, it's loading. Kumiko, do you have your presentation on the screen?
Let's see.
Okay, alternatively, I can just, we can show the presentation from our desktop, and maybe you will just be instructing us next slide or something, yeah? Shall we do that?
Just a minute, just a minute.
Thank you.
Let's see, do you see my presentation?
No.
No?
No.
It's funny. We tried it and
Yeah, we tried it and it was working. But okay, I can just start showing it from here.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. I can give you the rights, Kumiko, or you have the presenter's rights, so you can use that.
Okay.
Excellent. Please.
Yeah, I think I do have now the rights as a presenter. Great, thank you very much. Thank you very much to Saman and Fanie for this opportunity to present this study, which is about making the case for increasing donor support for public education in Gaza. I have to start this presentation with a caveat. This study was done in 2013, and as all of you know what happened to Gaza this summer. So the situation there is different. The situation has drastically changed, and we know now that because of the during the conflict, more than 200 schools sustained damage, and 26 schools were destroyed. So these will be in addition to what I will be presenting during this presentation. But for the benefit of this audience, it's not the figures per se that are the focus of a seminar, but the approach. So I think that approach still applies. We're now trying to update the figures to make sure that we incorporate the latest damages and losses that were sustained from the recent conflict. Okay, so just briefly on the outline of my presentation, I'll start with a brief background on public education in Gaza and define what the issue is, and to frame the issue in terms of questions for the study, and then just briefly on the approach that we took, and then we will present the results in terms of the required interventions or actions to address the issue, and we also present the results on the benefit of the proposed intervention and the costs of the intervention. And I'll end my presentation with a brief conclusions and the lessons learned. So just briefly on the background on public education in Gaza, there are many myths about education system in Gaza. Like one of the very common myths is that almost all students in Gaza attend UNRWA schools, and that's not correct. In fact, half of the students in grades 1 to 12 attend government schools. In the basic level, 58% of students do attend UNRWA, and the 42% of the students attend government schools in basic level. But because UNRWA only goes up to grade 9, every student in grade 10, 11, and 12 attend government schools. So the government schools, public education system is a very important segment of the public education system in Gaza. The system has many strengths. It enjoys high attendance, high enrollment in both in basic and secondary levels, high levels of completion and a transition from a basic level to secondary level. And there is gender parity in enrollment. The more girls than boys attend the basic and the secondary level education. And almost all teachers meet minimum qualifications in terms of having the bachelor's degree or the other advanced degree in education. But as you know, because of the political situation there, since 2007, there is little investment going into that sector, going into public education system, leading to severe overcrowding and substandard facilities. In fact, an overwhelming majority of schools run on double shifts. And this is in contrast to the West Bank. All the schools in the West Bank were able to do away with double shifting a few years ago. And that has not happened in Gaza because of the limited movement of goods and services. Very little construction materials are allowed in Gaza, so it's very difficult to build new classrooms and build new schools. And more than 40% of all schools has facilities that are deemed inadequate. The system has many strengths, as I explained, but the main issue is the learning outcomes. The learning outcomes are very weak. There is high proportion of students that fail to achieve passing marks on periodic diagnostic tests, and the performance of the students in government schools is much worse than the performance of students in UNRWA or private schools. And between Gaza and the West Bank, the performance, learning outcomes of students in Gaza are lagging behind, and this is getting worse, as evidenced by the international test scores, such as TIMSS. This is just a graphical presentation of the passing grades, the passing rate of students in different types of schools. And you see that the students in government schools do much worse than those in UNRWA or private schools. And this is more so for math than in Arabic language. And this is showing the difference in the TIMSS score between students in the West Bank compared with students in Gaza. And the gap, as you can see, was non-existent in 2003, just 11 years ago, and that has worsened in 2007, and it's even exacerbated in 2011. So the way that we wanted to frame the questions for this study, why are students' learning outcomes worsening in Gaza And is there an economic case that can be made for investing in education and quality? What are the benefits and what are the costs of investing in education and quality? And should the international community support public education in Gaza? The approach that we took is the economic approach. As a human rights organization, the fundamental approach that we often take is a human rights-based approach, which is very well accepted here in Palestine because of the daily violation of basic human rights. But we opted for economic approach where we show the costs and benefits of undertaking a proposed intervention to show that there is a good value for money for investing in educational quality. And here are the list of data sources that we used for the study, including statistics from EMIS, TIMS, key informant interviews, and school visits. Next slide. Okay, it's not turning the page. Okay, all right. So in our investigation, there are many factors, multiple factors that are responsible for the worsening learning outcome for children in Gaza. But in our investigation, we identified that one of the most critical school-related factor is that there is a limited instructional time. That because of the double shifting, the students can only receive instruction time of up to 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, 20 hours a week, and that limits the amount of instructions and learning that can happen in schools. This is exacerbated by the fact that the national curriculum is fragmented into multiple subjects, so that there is very limited time, again, available on core subjects such as literacy in Arabic language and math and science. So it's important, in order for us to address and improve educational quality, it's important to extend school day by eliminating double shifting in schools. Okay, the benefits of investing in educational quality, there are basically main 3 benefits. The first one is the individual benefits on increasing productivity and earnings. And the recent research has suggested that it's not the years of schooling per se, but the improvement in cognitive skills that is the driver behind the increased productivities and earnings. And that is also the case with economic growth. It's not the years of schooling, but the improvement in cognitive skills that is the driver of economic growth. And besides individual benefit from investing in educational quality, there are societal benefits from investing in educational quality. Basically, the most important benefits are on health and society in terms of lower fertility rates, lower maternal and infant mortality, improved child nutrition, and higher participation in civic participation. I'm going to skip this graph, but it's just showing a very strong correlation between the economic growth and the cognitive skills after controlling for the impact of other factors. And the Middle East is smacked is in the middle, and the East Asia and India at the top, and the Sub-Saharan Africa and the Latin America at the bottom end of the graph. We have identified a number of options that are available that would raise learning outcomes in children in Gaza, and many of the options are available that are cost-effective. And eliminating double shifts and extending school day is one of the recommended interventions that are high costs but effective in terms of improving learning outcomes. Other interventions that are recommended are revising of textbooks, revising teachers' methods, teaching methods, and developing school development plans to make sure that there is more active participation of schools in the decision making. The cost of investments, the cost of investing in educational quality is substantial, and we just focused on estimating the cost of accommodating population growth, because there is a high fertility rate in Gaza, and the cost of investing in extra schools and classrooms by eliminating double shifting and to replace inappropriate facilities. Those are the three main interventions that we looked at in estimating the cost of investing in educational quality. And here are the results of the estimated costs. In order to just accommodate population increases for the next 10 years, we need to build 75 new schools, and to eliminate double shifting in all schools, we need to build 106 schools, and to replace substandard facilities, the 64 additional schools are needed. So the total cost of building new schools and accommodating increases in population and eliminating double shifting and replacing substandard facilities would cost $270 million in the 10 years time. And this is just to show that if there were no investment, average class size in the next 10 years would increase from 36 students per class to 47 students per class in 2022. Just recapping, to recap on the key messages, improving learning outcomes and accommodating population growth needs would require substantial investment in new schools, plus support for reforms that are less, that will cost less. For example, we talked about revising national curriculum to mainstream it and to make it less overloaded. But the educational challenges in Gaza cannot be addressed fully without donor assistance for public education, which is the weakest link in the Gaza education system. And there is both a human rights-based case and an economic-based case that can be made for investing in education system in Gaza. Lessons learned. A study was presented to the donor community and to the Ministry of Education, and there was a great deal of interest in the study. Ministry of Education was especially keen on using the results of the study in the national strategy and planning documents. And in our discussions with our government, we found that they were very keen to hear about our economic arguments, which is not something that we often do as UNICEF. As I mentioned, in Palestine, the human rights-based approach has a wide acceptance because people experience daily violations of human rights. So the human rights-based approach arguments are very much accepted. But even then, the government is always interested to know what the bottom line is. They're always interested in hearing about whether there is an economic case, there is a substantial societal benefits to undertaking an investment in an area. In light of the tight fiscal situations and in situations where the donor assistance is not growing, increased attention is being paid to demonstrating the value for money and maximizing the impact of the money spent. And we know that some donor agencies, such as DFID, has already come up with a guidance note on the value for money. And in Burundi, DFID has decided to close one of their programs based on the arguments of a value for money. Analysis of cost effectiveness and cost benefit can be a very effective tool in mobilizing resources for children. And in some countries, cost effectiveness and cost benefit analysis is the integral part of policy decision-making processes. And I know that in the case of the US, all the regulations will have to go through very rigorous cost-benefit analysis to show that the societal benefit from a regulation is greater than the societal cost from imposing that regulation. So it's important for UNICEF to embrace this type of analysis and advocacy tool in order to reach the audience that we haven't really traditionally reached before, such as the Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Finance, to engage more effectively to push children's agenda forward. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have about the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kumiko, for such an interesting presentation. I think going back to Amel's question, this also really, is a concrete example of highlighting what UNICEF's role in public, for engagement in public finance can be, in the sense that for us, it's engagement in this area is, a means to an end, because, our goals are very much in terms of improved equity in child outcomes in health, education, social welfare, and so forth. And as our determinants framework for in the Mores acknowledges, budgetary constraints and barriers and bottlenecks are sometimes a major barrier to helping achieve equity in child outcomes and improve child outcomes. So our engagement in this area is very much guided by that sort of understanding, and also the fact that we have very rich sectoral experience in each of the sectors that we work in, like Nima said, like Fania said earlier, means that we can work more closely with our, planning and finance counterparts in the social sector ministries to improve their budgeting practices and their efforts in improving child equity and child expenditures and allocations. So this is also an area where we have a comparative advantage over the international financial institutions, whereas, so their focus is more wide, broader in terms of PFM systems. Ours is PFM systems as it relates and as it affects child outcomes, and we have stronger linkages with social sector ministries that the IFIs usually do not have, so which is also obviously a comparative advantage we have that we can exploit in advancing our work in this area. So that's just an initial reaction to the question. Thanks once again to Kumiko. We have about 10 to 15 minutes for questions, so I'll just open the floor up to colleagues who might have any questions on any of the presentations. And please unmute yourself before you raise your question. Thank you.
Hi, Saman. This is Alessandra and Bilal. Can we ask a question?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
And please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Kumiko. Thank you so much for this great presentation. It's a pleasure to hear your voice again. So our question is, we have a couple of questions. The first one is, could you maybe provide more information on how you link the quality of education with the hours of teaching? Because, I was just wondering if there was a possibility to look into a higher quality of teaching with lesser times, as many schools in Northern Europe do these days, so kids can spend more time with their families. And related to this was perhaps, do you know in your desk review of any studies showing how much hours, hours spent in school interacting with other peers and in a secure environment actually impact the psychosocial development of children, and that is the reason why, not specifically the quality of the interaction with the teachers, but the time spending in school that contributes to their cognitive development as well. And I'm going to pass the mic to Bilal that has a question regarding impact.
Thank you very much, Kumiko, for the great presentation. I was just needed some details and explanation regarding the cost-benefit analysis. How did you calculate the costs? I guess this is crucial just to assess, but most importantly, how can we measure the impact of these different options and advocate for one of them? As it's really hard, given the availability of data, whether household or administrative, to capture the impact of the different options you presented on quality of education. The case is easier when it comes to attendance rate or enrollment rates. When it comes to quality, I would appreciate to hear from your expertise.
Over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexandra and Bilal. Kumiko, over to you. But I would suggest that we could leave the more detailed technical explanations for a bilateral discussion if needed. But Kumiko, please feel free to address them as you see fit. Also, bearing in mind that the time available we have for other questions.
Yes, we have a detailed report that has been completed, and we will be able to, share with you this detailed report, and that has some detailed estimation of the costs and the impact. But the one study that I recommend that we used in the study is the international study on the cost effectiveness of the options that are available to improve education, the students' learning outcomes. And this is based on the how many country? I forgot the details again in the detailed report. And this study has listed, I don't know how many, maybe about 30 different strategies to improve quality of education, and they were being listed in terms of the estimated increase in achievement and the impact and estimated increases in costs. So the details are in the report, which I would be happy to share.
Thank you very much, Kumiko. Any other colleagues with questions, clarifications on the strategic directions, on the needs assessment, and also on the State of Palestine case study? Well, was it that clear? But please, colleagues. Okay, I see Sophie's comment here in the chat box, and I just wanted to second the relevance of the points that she has raised, and also reiterating, adding on to the comments I made earlier about how our role is not to, of course, supplement the World Bank or IMF in this area of work, but to, it's a very complementary role, but with a very concrete focus on results for children in terms of spending, in terms of allocations, and so forth. So I think we have a niche in that area which has been more well defined over the years, and I think we have some rich experiences to draw upon, which are very well documented in the stocktake that HQ has done. So Amel, I don't know if you want to come in and comment on that further, but I think that's an initial response from our end in terms of what our comparative advantage and niche in this area of work is. Okay. Amel, are you... is Amel making an intervention? No, okay. Okay, so I think if we have no final questions, that brings us to the conclusion of this webinar. It's an initial exchange with you colleagues across the region in this line of work, as many more countries are beginning to scale up and plan for scale up of engagement in this area. We will be in touch with you when we're starting to design in more detail the orientation course for next year, but please keep in mind that it will be around end of Q1, early Q2, so just to give you a heads up as well. And you should start to, one of the things that it's important raising now, one of the things we'll try to do in the training in more detail, Amel, also of interest to you, is in the beginning also to try to start off by in more detail conceptualizing UNICEF's engagement in this area, the rationale for that, the barriers we encounter in that, and so forth, going into topics related to PFM reforms in the region, in terms of social sector spending in particular, and then starting to work, it will be more of a hands-on sort of training, trying to think and brainstorm through strategies for engagement in public finance for children agenda across countries in our region, especially given the very unique context of countries across the region. I think it will be a very good exercise towards the end to have some sort of brainstorming exercise, and that's what we're hoping for. And so it might be useful to think of participation from your offices in that sense. If there is, for example, one sector where you see a great need and a great strategic opportunity to engage in this area, it might be useful to recommend participation of a sectoral colleague in the training who can work side by side with you to devise that sort of initial agenda or strategy for engagement and scaling up engagement in public finance for children. So I think that's very pretty much the final concluding comments we have from our end. Unless there's anything else. Sophie is typing something, but I think it's okay in response to. And also just to mention that HQ is undertaking a series of webinars and guidance, producing guidance notes on technical topics. When we will share a more detailed corporate directions note with you, which will build on Fania's first presentation, and there will be a table listing the various activities that HQ is planning. So very useful technical guidance coming our way in terms of what UNICEF's what instruments such as PETs and PERs constitute, but also having hopefully a section in each of them about what UNICEF's role in each of these public finance for children related instruments can be. And yeah, so I think that's pretty much what we have to say. Sophie has a final comment in the chat box. Thank you once again for making the time to join us, and we really look forward to continuing this dialogue with all of you. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you so much. And as Saman said, we're going to share the documents, the PowerPoint presentations, and some of the analytical documents following these two webinars. So you will have a chance, for your feedback, yes. So you will have a chance to, first of all, see and hear the presentations from yesterday and today as well. And these documents, as we have just said, we would highly appreciate if you could also provide the feedback on the technical corporate direction paper and the summary or narrative paper of the capacity needs assessment. Thank you so much once again.
Anybody who's interested in having a one-on-one discussion about the study that we undertook is welcome. And Alexandra and her team, we can be in touch.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kumiko, once again.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kumiko and Nima as well.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nima. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.